Labor Day weekend. I hope you have festivities in mind for the weekend. It should be beautiful. I wanted to talk to you in particular about two things in particular. One is there's a lot of press in the last few days about the governor's decision to extend his emergency authority to February, and February because that's 6 months out, but also that takes his authority right up until when the legislature returns to regular session. And I know there's been a lot of press about that, and certainly we as a legislature would prefer to be in our usual mode of being a co-equal branch of the government. But I wanted to make some things clear about, first of all, what this actually means that he's extending his orders. First of all, structurally, Connecticut, the legislature is a part-time legislature. So part of the problem here is that not only are we not in session because of COVID, but we wouldn't, in ordinary times, we wouldn't be in session right now. And so we don't have the mechanism to do sort of lengthy hearings for legislation is just not in place. And so what you can do in a special session is vastly more limited than what you can do in regular session, to which we return in January, actually, not February. So I want to say, before the governor extended those orders, I heard from a lot of people asking for them to please be extended. And the first group that I heard from were an array of first selectmen throughout our region from both sides of the political spectrum, because what they want to do is govern with clarity and direction and stability in uncertain times. And so particularly with respect to the ability to hold meetings online and sector rules, that clarity is very helpful to them. The executive orders of the governor have applied to myriad tiny little fixes, things like what happens when your driver's license expires, what happens when a daycare worker's CPR certificate expires, things that the legislature is simply not. For us to address those, we have to come into session, we have to hold hearings, there'd have to be a vote by both the House and the Senate, and this all takes tremendous amount of time, which people don't have in these real life situations. So it's not the working of the legislature is simply not suited to this kind of immediate response. Another group that I had a colleague tell me the other day, she was on the phone with 300 childcare organizations throughout the state who are really struggling in this. They have been struggling for some time, but particularly now when the need is so great and their ability to function is restricted. And they uniformly wanted the executive orders extended so that they could have clarity about their business model, because they just simply couldn't operate without that. So despite the sort of some of the very political message you're hearing out there, I am instead hearing from a vast array of people from a wide range of political backgrounds saying, please do extend this. One important thing to note is that this is not, these are not permanent. These are, the legislature can act to override this at any time, should there be something that needs that action. And I will say, sort of in terms of the functioning of the legislature, we have been, in addition to doing a lot of constituent service, which really does connect me very deeply to the community, which is a good thing. It also, I have advocated with the governor on a variety of things and gotten real action. I mean, we had an issue, one of the issues recently had to do with COVID testing at nursing homes, and several of us disagreed with the 14-day policy that he had put into place, and we objected. We spoke to DPH, and that's going to be reversed. So I have found there to be traction getting those things reversed in other ways, and in a way that is more immediate and responsive to the needs of the community. So that's a little bit of background on that. The other thing I just wanted to give an update on is the energy bill, which was dubbed the Take Back the Grid Act, which is in response to both the exorbitant increase in Eversource rates in your July bill and the utter failure to respond appropriately to Tropical Storm Isaias in our region, and the many damages and difficulties suffered by people in our region, certainly as a result of that. So that has now become a proposed piece of legislation, and there will be a listening session on that next Tuesday, September 8th at 10:30 a.m. And I will provide some details on that, but just as a quick, that bill addresses things like, it's a really important bill, and I can't applaud the leadership of the Energy and Technology Committee to have pulled this together so quickly is really extraordinary. It goes after the rate-making structure so that it moves it towards a more performance-based metric, as opposed to a strict cost recovery metric where the utility just gets its money back. It gets its money back plus a return automatically, really without regard to performance as we would define it. And so this would change that. It attempts to reform executive compensation levels to restrict the number of things. For example, cost recovery couldn't be used for executive compensation. It provides a bill credit if you're more than 72 hours without power, which is in the draft is retroactive to July 1st. So, which would be obviously applies to Isaias. Provides compensation for spoiled food or medicine. It addresses minimum staffing levels. And it works toward making sure that there's an ongoing consumer advocate presence on the board. Now, I have to emphasize this is a draft piece of legislation, so we will see what happens going forward. But I'm a strong proponent of all of these measures, and I certainly will lend my voice to making sure that this gets moved through in a way that can create a public utility that is responsive to our needs. Lastly, just a reminder about the census. We are approaching more, the time to complete the census got cut. We only have through the end of September, and it's really important both for resources in our area, for congressional seats when we redistrict following the census in 2021. It is really important that you and everyone in your neighborhood respond to the census. And my apologies to sometimes people have been visited multiple times because sometimes you're asked about your neighbor because they can't find nobody at a particular address answers the door, and they have to go about, they're required to try to get information, as good information as they can, and I know that can sometimes be frustrating, but it really only takes a few minutes, and the census workers are working really hard to get that done so that we can get the resources in our communities that we really need. So thanks for your patience for that if somebody happens to knock on your door more than once. And I wish you all a really happy Labor Day weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.